Alright, so we're back once again, and today we're going to be discussing a little bit of a complaint that I see levied not too often, but quite often against players that maybe may be doing something wrong, or maybe might not be doing something wrong. And I think this is the perfect game to maybe discuss it, go a little bit more in detail and kind of figure out, what's the actual reason behind people complaining about people who sit behind islands, and if there is any actual legitimacy towards sitting behind islands and maybe taking a bit more of a defensive posture. So, as is the running theme, I've been playing a hell of a lot of ranked recently, and this is a very unique game because there's two things that aren't in this game. There's no CVs and there's no DDs. Instead, what we're put up against are a combination of Petropavlovsk, Stalingrads, Moskvas, St. Louis, Kronstadts, all those fun cruisers with loads and loads of radar. And so this means that myself, playing a Minotaur, has very limited options. I'm not going to rush headfirst into ACAP because that would be very, let's say, something a person with maybe 20% win rate would do. No, instead, we're going to take a much more defensive posture. I.e., the rock right in front of me that you can see is something we're going to be sitting beside or behind, and you can kind of see where this is going. Instead, we're going to allow ourselves to have a little bit of coverage over A, but at the same time not rush in. And again, if the enemy team is fairly competent, then they will generally be adopting the same posture. Now, of course, the enemy team does have a significant amount of radar, which can be a much more helpful thing when it comes to actually pushing caps in this very specific scenario. Now, what's some of the main complaints levied against players that, adopt this position that I'm adopting right now? Well, I think the biggest thing is that, and I think the biggest feeling people fall into when, complaining about this type of play, or the defensive nature of this play, is that humans can only really see one thing at a time, especially in this game. And so, when they're only seeing one thing at the time, they could be focusing on, the three ships showing full broadside in front of them, and they're shooting at them. And then 10 minutes passes in a game, and they look and they see either myself or someone else sitting behind a rock with full HP, completely unaware that the fact that, we're constantly looking for opportunities to do something. We're obviously shooting at enemy ships. We're trying to be effective. We're trying not to get hit by torpedoes or citadeled by a Petropavlovsk. And, they only see that very small snippet of time where we're sitting behind, not being effective, not doing something, or maybe we're pinned down. And so this leads to a lot of, shall we say, resentment, and can lead to some very, very colourful chat messages. Some of which I'll probably not read out because, I don't want to get banned, either in-game or on YouTube. So, instead, what we're doing in this game is, and I think probably the best thing you can do in this situation, is hold ground. Now, again, this is very specific to this specific game. I should probably stop saying specific so much, but it's just too much fun not to. But in this scenario, that realistically, no one really has a chance of capping now. If we're being honest about this, there's just too much coverage, there's just too many ships in a position to actually contest, and as you can see, the Neptune gets dropped down to about 17,000 HP very, very quickly, in just even attempting to cap A. So instead, the best thing to actually do in this position is just be defensive. Force the enemy to come to you. Generally, you do not want to be positioning or pushing or being aggressive in positions where where there's kind of a standoff, i.e. no one's been able to cap, no one's able to be, get that lucky one shot on an enemy ship. So instead, you want to be playing passive, you want to be playing defensive, and hope that the enemy doesn't get a lucky one hit, and instead force them to get panicked and feel like they need to do something, and then, wipe them off the face of the map when that time eventually comes. And as luck would have it, the Petropavlovsk does decide to get a little bit trigger happy and push in. And now the Minotaur isn't a great ship at tanking enemy shells. Usually, in terms of tanking, means blowing up the fuel tank. But in this case, the way I'm angling, it seems to be a lot more effective. And I can hold my own against Petropavlovsk in this scenario, mostly due to the fact that, again, he is pushing in fairly aggressively, which is, again, not something you do. And so in this way, actually pulling back and holding my position is being incredibly effective. Now, at this point, the Petropavlovsk does serve the purpose of being a kind of a distraction, and the Stalingrad and the Neptune does end up capping A, which is a bit unfortunate, but again, I take a ship advantage over a cap advantage pretty much any day of the week, outside of very specific circumstances where maybe the timer's running down and we don't have all that much time to reevaluate and get a cap advantage regained. Now though, it's a bit more sticky situation, and this is still fine though, because at the end of the day, even though we do have the Kremlin and the Stalingrad pushing down on top of us and a Petropavlovsk right in front of us, I'm fine with trading my life. Like, I have 43,000 HP. I've already done 40-50k to this Petropavlovsk, and if those other ships on my other flank want to keep coming, I have plenty of single file torps ready for them. And as you can see, being forced into an error, we do have to torp the Kremlin. Unfortunately, we do go down here, but I just want this to serve as a reminder that just because I sit behind islands, or just because sometimes we sit behind islands, doesn't mean you're being completely ineffective. Be cognizant that you might not hold or might not know the entire story of the game, and well, if things do go tits up, just try not to take it personally and move on to the next game. It'll do your mental state a hell of a lot of good, and you'll enjoy the game a hell of a lot more. But that's just a short little video I thought I'd pop up. But until next time, I'll see you all in the next one.